For some, creative energy is inspiration. For others, it's oppressive. Because big ideas and big dreams can stay locked away behind big emotions. Welcome to Creative Energy, the podcast, for those who are caught between vision and resistance. I'm Linda, and along with my co-host Heather, we teach on the patterns that keep us stuck and highlight other creators' stories. Visit us at wearecreativeenergy.com to apply to be on the show. Hello.
Hello.
Our guest tonight is Laci Harmon. She is a Brooklyn-based brand designer and illustrator who works with passionate founders and creatives to create visual identities true to their brands. Tonight, we're going to hear about her creative journey and a creative vision that she is feeling stuck on and wanting some guidance with. Welcome, Laci.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We are so glad that you are here. I want to get started with your most recent creations. So I want to hear about you starting your own company, because I think for most creatives, this is one of the biggest leaps that you can make. And I always want to give people a lot of props for making this leap, because it is no small task. So tell us about your transition and where your company is at now.
Yeah. So I had been working in-house in digital marketing at a cannabis company, and I was freelancing on the side, more getting into design and getting into branding. And I knew that's what I preferred. I knew that I liked autonomy and authority over my life in this way. And I knew it was time to jump. I was having a really hard time with that. It would have taken me about 2 more years to do it, honestly, if I hadn't had my boyfriend being like, jump now, just do it. So having that encouraging somebody just who supports you and has your back was everything. But I just took that leap, immediately wanted to vomit everywhere.
And we have no idea what that's like.
Familiar.
Yeah. And yeah, basically I was, for the most part, living off of savings. So I really just leapt. I had the comfort of my savings, but I didn't have a plan, which felt very scary. So I started my company a year ago in May, and it was very unofficial. And I knew that I had to cut some of my freelancing clients that I'd kind of been using to gain experience, but that weren't quite paying high enough to support me doing this full time. And that was tough. But we got there and nothing is clear. I know not what is going on ever. But I was in Vermont. And I knew there weren't a lot of opportunities there. So I had to take another leap, and I leapt to Brooklyn, to New York City, which is another level of scary. I am now starting a business in New York City. And everybody was screaming, no.
Totally.
But yeah, I knew that I needed more opportunity and just more options. And again, that was a full 6 months of wanting to vomit. But now here I am. The ball is starting to roll. Things are starting to really feel good just in this past month. And yeah, that's a bit of a ramble, but the ramble is the vibe of how my business really is. So
I think that's so real for most people.
Real.
Starting a business.
yeah.
It's a lot of discomfort. It's a lot of, am I actually going to do this? Is this actually going to work? A lot of self-doubt. And I think almost every entrepreneur has to be a little bit delusional / crazy to even pretend like it could work.
Well, and then moving to New York. I mean, that's one of the most expensive cities, and it's busy and chaotic. And I completely relate to the fear. I moved for a similar reason. I got clear on what I wanted to do. And I was like, in New York, I can't do this in this small mountain town. I have to go somewhere. And New York was the place. And my whole family freaked out. Including me. It was fucking scary. So I get that. And I commend that level of courage, because it requires so much courage.
It really, really does. And once you do that, once you accept that you're going to do something and you're going to do it scared shitless, it changes something in you. It proves to you that you have courage, which I think we all need to prove to ourselves. And when you do
Absolutely.
that, that's really when things start changing. If you can put yourself in positions to prove that you are courageous.
Yeah, it's true. How did you work with those voices, those people kind of coming out and saying, this is nuts, you're not going to make it, you're not going to succeed, this isn't safe? Internal and external voices. How did you work with those?
The biggest, loudest voices were internal, and the other voices scared me, but I also felt a little rebellious towards them. Like, who are you to tell me what to do? If I want to go make it there, I will go freaking make it there. And they almost pushed me a little bit, but then I would go home and I'd be in silence and I would be like, what if they're right? I don't know myself. I don't know the world. I love routine. I am not the type of person to do something like this, blah, 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 blah. How did I handle that? I didn't, honestly. I knew that it wasn't going to go away. And I knew that I had to choose to do the thing with those voices there and let them have their airtime and just experiment. I had just turned 30, and moving to New York City, it's something that I had wanted to do since I was 12. And I had just been waiting for the right time. I was waiting for later. But because of that transition to 30, my brain started to go, okay, when is later? If not now, when are you going to do this? So I had that desperation a little bit, that motivation, and that helped too. So the motivation and just the acceptance that the fear is not going to go away and I have to do the thing even with the fear. And I questioned every step of the way. I got a lot more gray hair. I was freaking out. Honestly, until about a month ago, I was questioning if I did the right thing.
What happened a month ago? Like, what shifted for you?
I think I started to recover from the transition and just the stress of that. So my nervous system started to kind of get back to home base, and I was able to take a breath. And that's all anyone really ever needs, ultimately, to see things clearly. But that is the biggest thing that helped. And that's what allowed me to start recognizing, like, hey, I had the courage to do this. This thing that I have been questioning for years if I'll ever actually be able to do, I just did it. If I can do that, what else can I do? And so those voices started to replace the evil voices of self-doubt. And just that little bit that allowed me to start putting myself out there more. I started going to networking events and just really trying to embody a what the hell attitude. Like, if I do this, what's the worst that's going to happen? Let's just go. And I started to see the return of that. I started to meet people. I started to get potential collaborations on the table, and just things started to move and it started to feel really good. So just the whole combination of that. And this is just really, honestly, a couple weeks, like maybe a month. And yeah, those are the things that really started to change. It's all mental.
And I found you around that time. So
Yes.
It all kind of works.
Yes.
When things start flowing, they start flowing, right?
Exactly.
And you just need like a little bit of momentum to get things going down the hill, and a little bit of that delusional belief that it can work, right? We'll go a little bit backwards through your journey. I like discovering this way. Tell us about working for the cannabis company.
Let's see. So I'm going to go back a little bit further, actually, to tell that story, just to say that I did not have a degree and I did not have a background in marketing or design or anything. I had a background in music, and we can get to that later. But basically, I had a large amount of imposter syndrome, and that's what I was working with. So before the cannabis company, I had been working in a restaurant, and I ended up helping them out with running their social media and creating design for them for marketing materials as they needed it. And that was kind of my college in a way. That was my university. And I was just really trying to learn everything I could to get to the point of being hired somewhere like this cannabis company. So that was kind of my foot in the door there. And then it was a very entry level position. Like this was not a big agency type role in marketing, but it was with an amazing team of just really talented people, really talented creative director, a really talented graphic designer. And I felt honestly horrible the majority of the time working there because I was so insecure about what I knew and if I had taught myself enough and if I had tricked my way into being here, that I was so uncomfortable and I was working through that. But I was also learning so much from these people. And I was going in and on the days where I was actually able to drop that enough, those feelings, to just keep an open mind, I would learn even more. And that honestly really describes that whole position in my mind. But I was helping them out with design. I was helping them out with product photography. I was running a social media account for them. So just like a large encompassing role of multiple different tasks.
How do you think they saw you in that role?
Well, my brain tells me that they saw me as a little child who maybe should or should not have been there. I don't think that's actually true, but that's what I told myself the entire time, which actually made me afraid of them. Which is just ridiculous. These were such nice people. And I bet if they heard that, they would be confused.
Can you put yourself in their shoes? Like, what do you think that they really thought in that time frame that you were there? Because they hired you for a reason, right?
They did. I don't think they thought of me that much, actually. I think I was a lower level kind of assistant position. And they were very busy and it was a very chaotic role for everybody. And I don't think they thought about me as heavily as I thought about me or them. And apart from that, I think that they probably thought I was a very kind, very diligent, caring person. It's hard to say. And I don't know if that's true, but honestly, I bet that's probably true and more true than my initial thinking.
Yeah. I think that we don't talk about this enough. And I've worked in positions where I'm hiring creatives, and some of them didn't have a whole depth of experience. And what counted in those moments was your willingness to show up and learn, and your willingness to be accountable and trustworthy, and your willingness to jump in where you're needed. Those skills are hard to teach. And you kind of were raised that way or you weren't raised that way. And I mean, you could call that work ethic, I guess, but I see it. I tell my daughter all the time, I want her to be cooperative and helpful. Like, more than being nice. I don't care if she's nice. Like, I want her to be cooperative and helpful. And I feel like in working in a team atmosphere, in working in high pressure atmospheres where, especially in small companies where like you can't hire all the people you need in really small companies. So you mostly just need people to be cooperative and helpful and willing, and not to have anybody say that's not my job.
Yeah, I think that's a huge, huge thing. I think if people are willing, all technical skill and talent in that way can be taught, but the willingness to be open, the willingness to continue to learn every day and be a team player, it's harder. You either are willing and committed to do that or you're not.
Yep. I wonder if you could reach out to somebody. I'm just curious. This is not even what we're going to talk about today, but like, I was just curious, like if you reached out to somebody from there, like, would you write me a recommendation? People are super willing to do that.
Yeah.
And you could just have that in your back pocket and then you'd kind of know.
I know. I've been thinking about doing that, honestly, just because I know it's good to have recommendations, and I never did because when I left, I kind of ran away. But yeah, I've been curious too, and I bet it would be a lovely recommendation because, like I said, they're such sweet people.
I don't know. It might be a way to kind of like tie that up for you and a more true picture of how you were there, right?
Yeah, I think I'll do that, honestly. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what they say.
Let us know how that goes. If it just comes back as she was an imposter, then we'll have a different conversation.
You'll have proof of your internal story.
Exactly. Validation.
Did we pay her? What was she doing here? So Is there more you want to say about that experience, like the cannabis company? Because I know that that was kind of the thing that switched you into the branding and marketing world, right? Or the restaurant, I guess, before the cannabis company.
Yeah.
Those two.
But this was the real kind of role with the title and the entering specifically to do that. I think when you are teaching yourself things like this, it's all about proving to yourself what you can do and what you're allowed to do. And I think the biggest role this played is that every single day my confidence grew like a little bit more. And I think when you're climbing up the ladder in this way, that's really, really what matters. So I came out of that still unconfident, still with imposter syndrome, which I think I will have forever, and that's okay. But it was much more controllable. I had proof that I could get a role like this, stay in a role like this, and I chose to leave on my own time. I was not kicked out. I had all this proof that I had the ability to do this, and that is what changed everything. Because it's just really about, especially if you want to go off and do something on your own, like starting your own business, you are the only thing that stands in your way. So if you can convince yourself that you are capable, then you're capable. I really believe that. And I learned a lot of technical stuff. I learned more about Photoshop and, just some tools in this position and design elements. But that is the biggest lesson that role gave me.
Tell us about your musician background. When did you start making music? How old were you?
I was 12, maybe 11. My dad played guitar, and he had been learning this one song, Blackbird by the Beatles, on the guitar. And he'd been trying to learn it since before I was born. And he could kind of get his way through it, but he was still working on it. It's tricky. It's got like picking, and it's a tricky song. And so I don't know what made him give me the guitar that day, but he gave me the guitar and he's like, here, let me teach you this thing I've been trying to learn. And in an hour, I was playing the whole thing perfectly.
That must have frustrated the shit out of him.
Yeah. I think it did because it had to, right? But he didn't show that at all. All I remember him showing is
pride.
Yeah, this is what you're going to do. You found your thing. Let's go. Like, this is so impressive. And then my parents also like to tell another story. I don't even know how true this is, but they were at somebody's house when I was 5 and that person had a harp. And I just wandered away from the group at 5 years old and went up to the harp and played Mary Had a Little Lamb note for note. I don't know if that's true, but
wow.
Yeah, this is the lore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I always had a little bit of a natural tendency towards it, and it was just being uncovered. So I think I was about 11. At 12, I was writing my own songs. And at 13, I was performing live at cafes.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I think I was mostly doing open mics. I'm not sure, but I know I was on stage at that time. And then I think it was 14 or 15, I had my first like full show. Yeah, that's really how it started. There was this amazing cafe. This is in Montpelier, Vermont. So very small, very funky town. And there was this one cafe in town, but they would just get these amazing musicians through it because the two owners were just these incredibly creative and well-connected people. And it was there that I started playing. And then things just evolved. I recorded an album and released it when I was 16. And just unofficially, I recorded it and produced it in my bedroom. And I always thought that like I found my thing. Like I'm 12 and I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is it. Big question answered. As I got older, I did go to university, so it just stuck until I was like 23. I thought this is the thing I'm doing. And just as I got more into it, I realized that I loved it. It defined everything about my identity and who I was. But as much as I loved it, I did not love it enough to commit to being potentially broke for the rest of my life. And I realized that while that didn't have to be a truth, while I could easily find success and quickly and have enough money to live on, I think that when you're going after a career like this, you have to be okay with accepting that that might never happen. And I just wasn't. I was not okay with working in restaurants forever on the side and being 60 and realizing that this thing had never happened. I didn't love it enough if I didn't get to be successful with it. So I left university. And then this is when I started working at that restaurant. I had kind of just been going, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's when I stumbled into the social media thing that just rolled the whole marketing and design career into place. But music is still, it's really just still something I view as my identity. I'm not great at talking to people. I'm getting better, but it's hard for me to connect with people one-on-one. But it always felt like if I could get up on stage and sing them a song, it would break down every self-barrier that I had up, and I could actually show people in that moment who I was. So that is always, it's just, I'm always going to view music as my identity. But yeah, it's going to be maybe not the main thing. Maybe eventually it will be, but I needed to support it with something that also felt equally strong and something that I was also so excited about. I felt like I needed to have two things in my life and in my career life. Yeah, so it's a bit of a background on that.
Did you have formal training in music?
No, I didn't ever go to school, and I wasn't homeschooled either. I was this thing called unschooling.
Love it.
Yeah. It's, I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
I've never heard of that. What?
So basically, if homeschooling is you take the curriculum that your child would be learning at school and you teach it to them at home, basically. Unschooling is self-directed learning. You allow your child to decide what they are interested in and you facilitate them on learning it, is what I did anyways. I don't know if that's the direct explanation, but that is how I was taught what it was. And that is what I did.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, I think that's amazing, like just hearing about it. But what was it like for you?
I think it is amazing. I think it is also why I have a harder time connecting with people, or why it took me until I was 30 to feel comfortable in social situations, because I didn't have a lot of people around me besides my parents while I was growing up. So I think that's the downside of it, but that also can be a good thing. If you put attention there and really work with that, I think that can be fine. I think it was great because it made me who I am. And after 30 years, I can finally say that I like who I am. So I'm glad that everything led to this point. I think that there are aspects of knowledge that I lack that make me uncomfortable, like facts about geography or random things that really don't matter, but I have been made fun of for not knowing throughout my childhood and my life. But overall, I really don't personally believe in the public educational system whatsoever. And I think that having an alternative route is really where it's at. How we change the entire world is how we nurture our children. So for the most part, I am all for it. I think it's great.
It's so funny. Isn't it funny, Heather? Like, you're our second homeschooled guest out of not many guests. And I was homeschooled until I was 10.
Oh, cool.
So we have that synergy. It's just funny because you don't meet many people. You really don't meet many people.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the first person, Linda, that I met that was actually homeschooled. And now I'm pretty sure this is
now
your
there's
fault.
3.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm fascinated by it because that's something I always wished in terms of that freedom to explore what was interesting to me was something I always desperately wished for, because there was something in me that knew that I wasn't ever going to use more than half of the shit I learned. And it just felt like a royal waste of my time and energy. And I really, like, it wasn't that I was lazy. I was very interested in English and writing and very interested in art and all these different things. And I just always felt so held back.
But that dissection of that frog, don't you use that?
I must know
every
what's
day?
in this frog. But yeah, and like half of those geographical facts that you feel like you're missing, I don't know anymore.
And
like,
they clutter our
just
brains.
Left my brain.
Yeah.
And we have Google Maps.
Yep. So now really everything is leaving. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
What about internet? Because we started getting internet when I was like 10, and I'm quite a bit older than you.
I was born in Los Angeles, but when I was 6, my parents decided they wanted to move to Vermont to build their own house and just start their own thing. So we moved. We were living in hotels for a little while. Like, they sold everything they owned. We didn't have a computer or anything at that point. And then they bought a piece of property and we basically moved into a tent. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Should we have your parents on? I feel like we should have your parents
Seriously,
on too.
this is fascinating.
It's super interesting.
The thing is, I don't know what happened in their minds, but they started building the house in like July, and then it started getting really cold, and the house was only like a foot tall at that point. And they very quickly realized that they needed an escape route. And I think I had started to catch a cold or something, and we're living in this tent on this property, and it's starting to snow. It was like the first snow, and my mom was just like, my mom was flipping out, and this random man who we had a dog, and we had gotten our dog from him. All of a sudden, he just shows up on this property, which has like a mile-long driveway, by the way. Like, we're talking complete isolation. He just shows up and he asks my parents if they're ready to give up yet, and says that his in-laws have a cabin, like not finished. There's no plumbing, there's no electricity, but it's a cabin that we can stay in over the winter. So then we moved into that. So no computer or television there either. And then his in-laws ended up being born again Christians, and my dad is Jewish, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so not a lot of pop culture in my head from that time.
This is so good. Can't wait for your book to come out.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh, goodness.
I saw Heather's face when I asked the question about, did you have formal training in music? And I'm like, she knows where I'm going with this, because you didn't have formal training in music, but you absolutely owned it. It just became part of who you are. It's part of your identity. Why is that different for design?
Not positive of the answer. I think there's a couple things that it could be. And one is that when I was learning music, I was a kid and I didn't have yet. They grew, but at that point, I didn't have things in my head telling me, to be professional, you should do something this way. And to call yourself a musician, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Eventually, I did very much get those things in my head. But because I started so young, that foundation that I had built up myself before any of those things, I think carried me a long way. I said a couple things, but I actually think that's the main reason. I think that I got into design in my mid-20s, and I had already had so many people tell me that I just shouldn't be practicing music. I had my college professor say something like, the school must really have been in financial trouble to have stooped so low as to let someone like me into the school. So like, I had a lot, and like, that was not the only bad thing I've heard. It's the arts, right? People in the arts, they have some things to say.
People.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
So I had a lot of that in my head at that point. I started design and I was like, okay, I really need to do this right? This is serious business now. This isn't music. We're talking like, yes, it is an art form. I truly believe that. But we also like to say it's not an art form. It's design, it's business, it's strategic. And I really have to show that I know what I'm doing because I have no background and blah, 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 blah. So I think I had this intense desire. I also didn't have anymore the ability to sit for 12 hours a day, like noodling around on the piano. I had limited time to teach myself things. I had a job and I also wanted out of my job. So I had in my head limited time to get to a level at which I could then do this professionally. So a bit of a ramble, but I think all of that is aiding to that imposter syndrome around design. And it's there in music too. It's just not as strong.
I think what is sad about the design culture that you described, and is so true, is it's usually those loudest people in the room that actually have the worst imposter syndrome and are like covering it up themselves. And it also kills people's inner intuition around design and art because, there's these like specific criteria that you're supposed to meet. But people don't come to you, any of us, for our Photoshop skills. Certainly not mine anymore. Maybe ever.
Mine sometimes, but it's not because of Photoshop. It's because of my eye.
Yeah. And that can't be bought and that can't be trained. And then your artistic intuition can't be bought and can't be trained. And I just find it to be a really sad thing that everyone in this business shares but won't talk about. And the people you think don't have it, don't have imposter syndrome, don't, think that they have earned it. Even if you think that they think that, they don't, they haven't. I was in a really unique position at the company I was at because I was doing interior design and I was working with all the design departments, which made up in the time I was there, somewhere between 600 and 800 people. And so I would go from department to department to do different projects for all these different design studios, essentially. And I would meet with these different design directors and vice presidents and ask them what they wanted for their space. And the common ground between all of them, it didn't matter who they were. The common ground was they would call themselves, many times using this exact phrase, they would call themselves the redheaded stepchild of the company. They all thought that they were the same. And they all thought they were the outcast, or they were not as important, or their space was not reflecting what they thought it should reflect based on how important they were to the business or to the company. They all felt like that. And I was like, then who's it? Who's the cool kid? You guys all think you're the redhead stepchild. And it just really taught me that we are all in the same boat and we're in here fighting about our skills and our experience like children.
Yeah. It's something I've logically always known that. There's enough information out there that you see, yes, everybody has imposter syndrome. People are talking about it on social media. Logically, everybody's going through this, but it's very different to logically know it and really, really feel it. I've really started to feel it recently. I've really started to have the opportunity to talk to people who have a lot of experience and are a bit older and still feel that way. And now, even though I'm starting to feel it, I can't make it go away. So I'm really into this philosophy right now of the beginner's mindset, which is basically just, I can't make imposter syndrome go away, but what if I can flip it to work for me? If imposter syndrome is me being afraid that I'm going to be called out because I am not an expert and I don't know enough, what if that could also be my greatest asset, especially in creative work? What if not knowing enough when you don't know the rules, right? You can either learn all of the rules and then forget them to really make something original and new and creative, or you can just not know them in the first place and naturally see something funky that someone else didn't see.
And that's actually how design school cripples people, because it teaches you a lot of rules. You still think you never get them right because you don't get perfect grades, or you get hard critics, or you get nasty professors. And then you leave with almost no confidence. And then you're supposed to have intuition. And you're just confused by that point. You're like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And you're looking for somebody to tell you if you're doing it right. When the landscape is so cluttered now, everybody's marketing their thing. All you can do is be you. It's really all that's left that isn't already marketed.
I hope that it's on the rise, that showing of authenticity, that we're getting permission to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because we're not going to have any other choice.
Exactly. Gift and a curse.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What lights you up the most to work on?
I'm still learning that for the most part. When I was starting my business, there's that whole conversation that you need to niche down and you need to pick one industry and you need to stick with it. And, yeah, I've never been a nicher.
No, me neither.
I've been in everything.
Expand! Include all of the things.
Yes. So I've kind of given myself permission, again, because I didn't go to design school. I wasn't introduced to what all the things are. I'm giving myself permission to experiment and learn what I love doing. And so far, what I've discovered is branding. I really, really like creating logos and colors and fonts and illustrations that all speak the same language to create a little world for a brand that they can live in. It just really, really makes me happy. And on top of that, it makes me even happier when that brand is willing to and wants to be a bit more human and show a little bit more emotion, be a bit messy in like an intentional way. And those are the products that I really, really love, because ultimately I think that's how we should all be walking through the world. And I like when a brand is willing to risk that. So those are my favorite projects. And that, that doesn't exist within an industry. It can be any industry that has that viewpoint. So yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. And there's a lot of things around that, web design, packaging, that fall within that branding realm. But that's what I've been loving recently. And those are the projects I've been working on.
Yeah, I love that.
Part of what I offer is photography. And part of what I love about that is that accurate visual representation, because it's so important. And when you can really let that person's being and their thing shine through, that's ultimately what I believe, and it sounds like you agree, is the most attractive thing, is you literally become this walking embodiment of the thing that you're offering. And like, I just do not like seeing visuals that are so off and are performative and like come to this formulaic, this is what I should be and do and say and look like. It's just so not real. And like, I love your value of humanity, because I think that is ultimately like what we're all here for, is to experience humanity and share our gifts ultimately. So I love that. And I can see why Linda loves you. She's like, she's great. Just like one of us. So yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And I think the ability to feel you, right? I mean, Heather and I talk about this a lot. It's like when you're working with anybody anymore, I just don't have any capacity to work with people that I can't feel who they are. And we both read people really, really well and feel people really well. And so I always say, like, if I can't read you, I'm freaked out.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not trustworthy. I'm out.
Yeah. A little scared.
Yeah, that's me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember having a specific boss like that where I was like, I don't know who he is, and I'm terrified. Like, he has buried that true self so deep under there that I don't know who he is.
That's what I've realized, is the people that I can't read, that I get that vibe from, it's because they don't know who they are. I don't know who they are because they don't know who they are. And sometimes that's not a big deal. But if you have covered that up so much because you're afraid that you don't know yourself, sometimes that can be volatile.
Exactly. It's very unpredictable.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is one thing I want to offer you too. It's interesting. I do actually think that people who have been homeschooled or unschooled or, not part of the system from a really early age, they actually can read people really well, because those instincts weren't guided or taken away and put in a systematic box so early that they can still feel people. And some of this might be a trauma response. There's other things at work, and some might just be natural ability. But I do think that there's something there because we had more time to listen to ourselves as children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Without a lot of noise. I mean, I spent a lot of time just like in the forest.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Or in my room, like tinkering and doing God knows what, writing.
I think that's right on. I think that is so important, and that I really feel like I do have that. I have that ability to read people, and there have been areas in my life where I don't trust that my reading is correct, but then it's always correct.
Yeah.
And I do think it's from that. It's just from having so much silence and so much time to look inward. I think that affects it.
Yeah, it's a real gift to have had that.
Yeah, I had to invest in that.
Yeah. But you got there.
But I got there.
It's what matters.
You wanted it. You always wanted it.
Yeah.
So you've talked to me a little bit about a huge vision, and this is why we have you on the show tonight, a huge vision that you want to create and you feel a little bit stuck on it and a little bit like people. I loved your description in your podcast application form about people's eyes glaze over when you talk about this vision. And Heather and I know that so well. And we get told, like, you need an elevator pitch, right? You need this like snappy thing that will keep people's attention. And the older I get and the more visions I have of what I want my life to look like, the less I agree with that. Sure, maybe if you need funding, sure, maybe if you're going down like very traditional path of business and you don't know how to make relationships, like you don't know how to actually make connections. So you're just going to like pitch this thing really hard.
Or even people who can't be felt.
People who can't be felt.
Like they need something.
They need something to grab your attention.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to play with being less verbose. I've been playing with that. It's hard.
Yes. Yes, it is.
But I want you to give us the full vision, whether our eyes glaze over or not. They won't. And tell us how it came about. Tell us in your best description what you think it's going to end up being. Like, what is the full manifestation of this vision?
This is going to be a really long elevator ride.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay. So we've talked a bit about my background, and we know that music is a huge part of my life because it is. It's a huge part of my identity, but I've kind of let it go while I've been focusing on design and how to make that more a part of my identity and my skill set. And I think it's really easy always to have a goal or something that you want to keep in your life while you're focusing on something else, something that's currently taking a back burner, but you want it to just stick around, small steps every day. But it's really easy to just totally forget that thing and let it fall off. I refuse to let that happen with music. That's the kind of thing where I will be 80 and I will look back. And it's so easy for this to happen. I will look back and I will be like, shit, this is the thing that will give me regret. So I wanted to find an idea that was a bridge between music and design. I also wanted to find within design a playground because of that imposter syndrome that I have and that feeling that I need to be professional. Branding, as much as I love it, I haven't totally figured out how to play in it yet. It's still very stressful in a way. So I wanted a playground that involved music and design. And something we didn't talk about as much is that I do like physical art and painting. So how can I merge these three things together to create, I guess, a product? And what I was thinking is that I can record a piece of music, and it doesn't have to be a song. It can be a soundscape. It can just be a collection of sounds, anything that has a feeling to it. And then I listen to that soundscape, that song, and I just decide visually what information is in here. How does this make me feel? How can this translate visually? And then maybe I do something with physical mediums to create a sort of texture element, something that feels real and tangible. And then I accompany that by some kind of digital art form to tie it all together. And then what that becomes is kind of like a capsule of prints. It could go on t-shirts because I do want to get into fashion. And yeah, it just becomes a little world. And then maybe if you buy that t-shirt or that art print, you get the MP3 of the sound recording that made it all happen. So it's very loopy at the moment. This is where I get the glaze when people are like,
no, that sounds fucking awesome. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of something that would be interesting from a marketing perspective. This is something that I feel like when filmed with these steps and these processes for social media, for Instagram, is just going to have all these elements that are going to be kind of interesting. I have a potential name for the business, which is Tantivy, which is a word from the 1800s and was kind of used as like a hi-ya for horses to make them
Giddy
go.
up.
Yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
And it kind of means to do something hurried and messily, which is exactly what I want because I have a huge problem with perfectionism, which is why this idea still does not exist. And I wanted it to kind of be a platform, really just a mantra for myself to just let it go, just make them messy, not only to get things out into the world, but like that's literally the point of the brand and the reminder to people. And so I'm thinking when I'm making these videos for social media, they're timed. I only have so long to create the project. There's a cutoff. I will not adjust this until I die. At some point, it is what it is, and it goes out into the world. So that's kind of the concept. The name is only potential because I realized that there's a sex doll company and their name is Tantallee. And I'm like, maybe that's too close. I don't know. I'm curious for your opinion. But yeah, that's kind of the idea.
I just see the name thing as like, we're in a crowded world with a lot of syllables. Like,
yep.
If somebody ended up on their website, they'd be like, that's not her.
Yeah. Or maybe they'd be like, ooh, fun.
Right. Like, I wouldn't put too much stock in that.
Okay. So then, yeah, that's my name then, because I've been set on that for a year until like a week ago, I realized that and started questioning.
Yeah,
so
no.
that's the name.
Unless it was like the exact same spelling and the exact same word, but
yep.
Otherwise I wouldn't worry about that.
Cool.
CreativeEnergy.com is a spa and pool company.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
So people know that they are lost.
Yep.
When they go there. So first I want to know, like, what is the stuck spot exactly? Because you say perfectionism. Perfectionism, as we learned in our month of doing perfectionism, is this giant ass umbrella that really covers a lot of different, more specific blocks. So is it a little bit more about the overwhelm of the amount of pieces, the amount of moving pieces that you're trying to coordinate? Is it that I'm just going to rattle some things off here. Is it that you are concerned that you can't actually make the thing that you've made in your head? Or is it that this messy thing that you're going to create both the inputs and outputs for is maybe just too isolated? Like maybe you need collaboration with this?
So I think I want collaboration with this. And while it might not start, I want it to get there. So I don't think that's the block. I think the block is a combination. Honestly, you really pinpointed it perfectly of the first two. The main one being, oh my goodness, I've created this monster of an idea with 40 different moving pieces. I have a full-time job. This isn't my full-time job. And while I'm willing to work 14 hours a day, every day, if it's on what I love, how can I even then run both of these things that I do, this design business and this side idea? And because there's so many moving pieces, how do I even start? Like, I think it's also always every art form that I do, I have a hard time starting because I know what I have in my head is not what's going to come out. And at some point in that creative process of the hair pulling and the crying and the frustration and the messy that makes up the beautiful output is I'm going to come to terms with whatever it is and where my skill set is now. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. And I don't think that's the main block, but that is an overall general vibe of every creative project of why I have a hard time sitting down to do any creative project ever.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
It's there.
We understand.
You're in good
Wonderful.
company.
You're in good company.
Wonderful.
Can I just tell you what I see? Like when you describe this, like what I actually see this being, I see this being an event. I see this being a Brooklyn warehouse DJ'd event. And you're collaborating with the DJ. The DJ is creating vibes. People are telling the DJ what vibe to create. The DJ is then creating the vibe. And then you are in real time creating the artwork. That's pinnacle. That's aspirational manifestation of this. The baby version of this, the entry point, proof of concept, if you want to call it that, is almost like a busking version of this. It's you as the caricature drawer at the head of the tourist attraction, where you're just doing it. Like you may not have an input, you may not have anybody giving you money standing out there, but you're just showing what you can do of turning music into digital art or turning music into painting. It is in a finite amount of time because you're not going to sit out there all day. Could be in a park, could be in an art studio that you rent. It could, like, there's a lot of different, like, small versions of this, but it's something that just gives people a little bit of a taste of what this is. Social media is going to fall flat. The energy you're going to get from having actual people around you while you're doing this is going to be the thing that makes it vibe with people.
No, I think there's something there, because as you're saying this and you're saying it should be something that's live, it should be an event, even if, it's not the pinnacle right now, it's just a small event you create. I'm feeling my face go pale and like I want to throw up. So that means it's probably the right direction.
That's a great sign. But
exactly.
Okay, it's a house party with 3 of your closest friends to start.
No, I think that's the way, right? Because putting that live aspect in it is the true timer in a way. It's the true, like, what you get right here. You can't take that and like work it. It is what it is. And there's something magical within that type of collaboration.
Okay, I also have something to offer. And I don't know why, but I feel so sweaty. Like, scared to say it. I don't know why. But actually, the emotional response that I had to what you shared was that, like, I want one of my songs as a painting. Like, I would love to see what you would do with one of mine. And then I was like, oh my God, like, there are so many people who connect deeply to music. And what if you offer, what's your favorite song? What's the song that feels most like you, or what's most important to you? I'll make a piece of it for you. And it's becomes this sacred, special, personal thing for people that's custom, but it's incredible. So I don't know why that feels so like high sensational. But yeah, like, my first thought or feeling was, I have a song that I have loved. Like, it came from the earth. Like, it was just like this purely channeled song, and I recorded it, and it's not a great recording, but it's the song that I come back to all the time. And that was my first. I was like, I would love to see what you would do with that.
Oh, I love that. That's lovely. I think there's definitely something there too. I think in a fit of trying to make motivation, I was on another podcast a year ago, and I just announced the fact that I was the founder of this business of Tantivy, because I was like, if I say it online, then I have to do it. And I still haven't, and it's been a year, so it didn't work, and now it's just embarrassing. But on that podcast, the girl that I was talking to, she's a musician and she writes songs, and this is the first thing she connected as well, is, oh my God, I would love to see you do this with one of my songs. So I think there's really something there that is emotional and has a lot of potential.
So we're going to workshop this for you, which is something I'm really excited to do. And I think we'll tier it. And maybe that is even actually the first tier. Like, you've got Heather has a song. I have a song. It doesn't have a melody. You could add a melody. Kelsey, who was on a previous episode, who is also half Jewish and homeschool. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but just attracting different versions of myself. But and she and I met on a plane. Like, we have the weirdest story, but
oh wow, I think that's all we ever do. My mom always says that the world is a mirror, and what you see, you will get back at you. So
yes. And so she has a number of beautiful songs. And so maybe it's just like specifically asking, like, what are the songs you've created? I want to do 5 of these. And then those are at your own pace, and they're just for social. You can video them if you want. You can throw out the video if you don't like. And then the next tier is, I'm going to invite people over and do this in real time. And then the next tier is, I'm going to ask for people to pay me to do this in a park. And then the next tier is, like, you just kind of keep working up. I could see it almost being like there's somebody else hosting a huge gallery show, and you're doing this live at somebody else's show. Like, I could see it playing out in so many different ways, but obviously you can't blow out your system going to those things first. You got to like start and really get a groove with it and make sure that you're feeling like you really do want to do this still, because we have things in our heads that, like, once they're out, I just changed my whole design collective, because it's like, once it was out and it wasn't quite me and it wasn't quite doing the thing I needed it to do, and then I got to pivot and like make it more me. So we will workshop that. But I think it sounds like the biggest block really is overwhelm.
Yes. That I think is my biggest block in every area of life is the overwhelm. But yes, here. Yeah.
People with big vision are overwhelmed.
Yes.
Like, hello.
That's
And
actually, I like hearing that I'm putting that on my wall.
Yeah, people with big vision are overwhelmed, and creatives a lot of the time are overwhelmed even more than quote unquote normal people, whoever those are. I don't know. I don't know any of them. But I don't hang out with those people. But I have a lot of the left brain stuff. So like half my career or more was like project management, because I can see all the moving pieces and organize them into some sort of logical thing that creatives understand. Like that's one of my superpowers. And so that's what we're going to do with your overwhelm is we're going to take all of the pieces of this project and lay them out in a very, very obvious way and make the steps very, very clear. And you can take them at however slow you need to take them, and you can break them down even more than we will for you. You can take each one and we'll tell you, like, we'll show you how to work with each piece so that every step does not feel overwhelming and you don't have to look at the whole map. And this is why big visions don't get off the floor. And this is why I'm so passionate about this work, because people have amazing fucking ideas and they look at it as I have to do this full expression of this full idea, or I've fallen short, or I've not given my idea the full expression it deserves. And somebody else should do it because they would do the whole thing. It's just not true. You should own this. Somebody could take this idea from our podcast. They could say, oh, that's a great idea. I can do that. And it would never have the energy behind it and the signature that you would bring to it and the love. And they could never outdo what you will create with this, right? So gatekeeping ideas is kind of silly because of that, because we are so individual in our expressions.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really excited for this.
Well, of course, like I look at things from a more emotional lens. You know, like where Linda is super good at strategy and all of the nuts and bolts and big vision and like ways of thinking, like that's not really my thing. Like my thing is looking at all of the places in you that are getting in the way of it, are scared of it, are holding on to things that maybe you don't need to hold on to anymore for this big vision to start coming to life, things like that. But like being in the room with more people, women who have big vision, I think will be a huge support to you, because I hear everything that you're saying and I'm like, oh, that's it. I thought there was going to be way more in terms of what you described, right? Like, oh my God, it's like this huge thing. And I'm like, oh, that's it. Like, cool. Like that makes sense to me. And I was like, yeah, I had a big vision too of combining things that I had not seen anyone combine before. Like I loved personal development work and emotional expression and art and photography and people, like, and I wanted to combine that, and I did. I found a way to combine it. And it's been a very wild process and journey and like refining and whatever. But those are the kinds of people you want to be around, because I look at you and I'm like, oh yeah, we can absolutely create something like that is unique to you, that feels good, that makes you feel seen and ready. So I even just think having that little bit of an update in your system of there are people who have big visions, who have been here before and combining things and frustratingly figuring out how to talk about them and express something that no one has seen before, or that might be like something unique, right? And this is what I see in you is like, this is yours. This is absolutely yours. No one else could do it the way that you do it. Like, you know, Linda was saying. And I think just letting that sink in, you're not insane. It's very doable. I know Linda, her brain is probably like, I see 50 pathways already. And I think that's one of the biggest things that us who have big vision is we think we're crazy and we doubt and fear and dismiss and invalidate all the time. And it's just not true. Like, you see something that other people don't see, and that's okay, because you're the one who's supposed to bring it through.
Yeah, that really hits home. It's one of the main reasons I chose to move to New York City, because I realized I wasn't able to put myself in the right communities, or there just wasn't enough of the type of community, which is exactly this, what you're talking about, that I needed.
And it's so important, because you need other big thinkers to understand what you're doing and why you want to do it and what's so important about it, how to get it done, and how to utilize that creative energy that you have behind this and focus it where it needs to go. People who are on the normal path, the more traditional path, like, are never going to be able to see you. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I think you've taken a huge leap in finding Linda on Threads and being willing to show up here and talk about it and receive support and say yes. I mean, to me, that says that you're way more ready than you might think you are.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's really good to hear.
Yeah. And just on a personal level, I think your vision is gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
And important, to be honest.
That's amazing to hear. Feeling confident now.
Good.
I want to give you, Laci, and our listeners a couple of ways to work with this overwhelm before we sign off. So Heather and I have different styles, right? And when I want to work with overwhelm, I want to get everything out on paper. I want to get like every single doubt, every single puzzle piece that I think is going to get in my way. All of those things that are kind of like in the back of your mind saying you can't do it because of this. You don't have the right money. Or you don't have the right people. You don't have the right car. You don't have the right, getting all of those kind of, I guess you could call them excuses, but like all those kinds of reasons out on paper and just get them all down where you can see them and work with them. So that would be my assignment and kind of like my first thing. And the second thing would be, and you'd probably say this as a second thing as well, which is like, and then once you have all those down, you can see what the emotions are behind all of those things, because those things are very easily solvable. But it's just kind of like when your mom is like, you can't go there, you don't have a rain jacket. And you're like, no, really, why don't you want me to go? It's not about the rain. You're scared of X. You're worried about this danger, whatever. So that would be layer 2. And you can work on these before the workshop with us to map all this out and kind of come with that homework. And this is what I'd offer to people listening. Like, if you're overwhelmed with a vision, get all the excuses and all the I can'ts out on paper, and then really question what they're there to protect you from. Do you have anything to add to that, Heather?
Yeah, I really view creativity as a relationship. And so what do you have, beliefs, thoughts, opinions, parts that are fighting, freezing, just in the way of this relationship, and which parts of you need some attention or gentleness, or, you know, like really asking yourself what you need, which sometimes is to cry. Sometimes it's to take a walk. Sometimes it's to scream, you know, like, so I very much look at this as a relationship, and what does the relationship need? And what do I need in this relationship? But that's basically right in alignment. Is like, what are you protecting yourself from?
I really love that too, because I feel like a lot of times we as people think that we can figure that out in our heads. We just get this, I don't know, I do it too, this sense of, oh no, I got this. Like, I know what's going on. And then I'm a big talker, like a talker through all of my problems, much to my probably mom's dismay. She has to hear me all the time. But just to really just talk through every aspect of a problem I'm having. And then I get off the phone and I'm like, wait, that's what's really going on. So just the idea of writing that all out feels really valuable and really actionable. And I really like that.
Yeah. And you have the thing that a lot of us do is you're incredibly self-aware and smart. And sometimes that can blind us to the involuntary, what's living in the body that doesn't make sense, where you're like, I don't get it. Like, I have all the pieces, I understand everything, and I still can't make this go. And that's where you have to actually drop deeper into the body and feel things you don't really want to feel, which is where I come in.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? Like, our culture does a really good job of separating mind from body. And so like overwhelm can sometimes come from overriding our body and pushing past limits, ideas, hunger cues, you know, all these things, and pushing because it's like, this is what we have to do. We have to be productive. We have to like get this thing. We have to blah, 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 blah. And we don't remember to value and slow down and check in with ourselves and feel things and like kind of dive a little bit deeper. So I think this is why Linda and I are a very good team, because
you've got both sides.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. And I can feel it. It's fantastic.
This was great. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and in a receptive, more vulnerable state. Like, I know that takes a lot of courage, and we really appreciate your openness and willingness.
I love both of you. I love your energy. I am so glad that Threads has not yet been corrupted and allowed us to connect.
Same.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to speak with you guys today and get to know you better. You're both amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to be on and for sharing your story. And I'm looking forward to working further with you.
Yeah, me as well.
All right, everybody. See you next time. Thanks for listening. Want to go deeper into this work? Join the waitlist so you're first to know when the Creative Energy course opens. The link is in the show notes.